Welcome back to In Your Neighborhood. Brad Bason's love of coffee began more than 2 decades ago, but it's only been in the last year and a half that he has turned his passion into profit.
I would say it probably started back in my early 20s. My mom had a kitchen shop up in Williamsport, and we sold coffee bulk. We had it in the wooden barrels and ground it, and getting a chance to talk and meet the salespeople and people is where I think my passion for coffee really started. And getting a chance to see the differences in the different coffees. Then about 8-9 years ago, a pastor friend of mine got me interested into home roasting coffee, and that really piqued my interest.
Brad started roasting very small batches for his own use at home.
As a lot of little hobbies progress, it just started growing. And to the point I was roasting and giving the coffee away to folks, and people were really enjoying it, and finally someone kicked me in the pants and said, you really ought to look at this on a larger scale. And so after doing a lot of thinking and praying, we decided, let's give it a shot.
And so in June 2011, Bason Coffee Roasting was born. From their Danville location, they roast specialty coffees that are sold around our region and across the country. Brad agreed to teach me the basics of coffee and the roasting process. So, let's get to it.
This is from Ethiopia. It's called Yirgacheffe. It's a region of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is actually where coffee was first discovered, first found. So Ethiopia still produces some phenomenal coffees.
That's interesting, because I would think most people think it's South American.
Nope. That's where a lot of coffee comes from. A third of the world's coffee comes from Brazil. They're a very large producer, and Colombia is also a very large producer.
This is what coffee typically looks like when you get it.
When I get it, it comes in bags, about 130, 150 pound bags. This is green coffee.
Raw coffee can be stored for up to a year.
I mean, take a whiff of it. I mean, it's very earthy, kind of it doesn't smell anything like coffee.
No, not at all. Brad pours the 12 pounds of coffee into the preheated roaster.
We typically start our roast at about 370, 371 degrees. This is just for monitoring. This doesn't control the roaster, but it's just for monitoring the temperature and time. So we'll start the time, put the beans into the roaster, and you can see them right here through the glass. It's like a peanut roaster. It's just a big drum, big tumbler.
Okay.
So we'll monitor the coffee there. This is what is called artisan roasting. This is not run by a machine. This is run by me. So there are several milestones that you watch during the roasting process, from watching the color, watching the smell, watching and even listening. There are some points in roasting that there's some audible signals to be able to tell you where coffee is at in the roasting process.
Okay.
So as we put the beans in, you'll notice that the temperature has already started to plummet. And it'll be about 1 minute and 40 seconds. It'll hit the bottom, and then it'll start coming back up.
The entire process takes about 17 to 18 minutes. Brad provided a handy visual aid for me to see the changes that occur as the coffee is roasted.
As we go along here, we'll start turning the different shades of brown, essentially.
Wow.
When we get up to this part right here, going from number 8 to number 9, is what is called first crack. That's one of the first milestones in roasting, and it's an audible milestone. It'll sound kind of like Rice Krispies.
Cool. Okay.
It's actually, if you look at the seam, you can see the bean actually starts getting larger. The bean actually, if you look from the size there to the size, especially here, you can see a large size difference.
And I noticed that when we were looking at it before you dumped it in, and then I thought, well, maybe it's because it's a different kind of coffee, and I'm used to seeing, you know, what I dump into my grinder
is a lot bigger.
But, so even though it's losing moisture, it gets bigger.
Right.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does.
Okay, I'll trust you. Just in the minute that we were talking, the color of the beans had already moved through yellow and into light brown.
Gets into right about here what is called second crack. Second crack is where the woody structure on the bean starts breaking down. It's a little more violent in sound than the first crack, but that's when the oils start coming out. You can see there's just a little bit of oil coming out, a little from here, obviously very oily. This would be close to the end of second crack, and this would be a dark roast, a French roast.
That explains why my Italian roast looks like this.
Italian's going to be
versus like a kind of a regular
breakfast blend,
or whatever. It looks more like this or something. You know, it doesn't have this kind of shininess to it.
Now,
I always wondered why it did that. Now I know. As the beans continued to roast, the smell became noticeably different. Oh, it smells almost bready or nutty or something.
We're getting to that stage, and it's still pretty small.
The Ethiopian beans were being done to a medium roast and will reach a peak temperature of 415 degrees. That recipe is determined by a couple of factors. So does that depend on what kind of roast you're doing and also what kind of bean it is?
Yes.
So both of those are factors as to how hot it needs to be to get what you want out of it.
Exactly.
After a few more minutes, our beans had reached first crack. Brad pulled out a sample for us to see the changes in the bean.
As you look at the coffee, you can see how the seam is still cracking. Oh, and there it just popped. There's one just popped. But you can see how the seams opened up. The coffee is physically larger. You also see this stuff flying out. This is called chaff. There's a skin that's on the outside of the coffee when it's green, and as it roasts and as it swells, the skin comes off.
A minute later, the medium roast beans were done.
Here we go. We've now hit 415 degrees. That looks about right. So here we go. Once you get coffee to the roast you want to cool it down as fast as possible.
The coffee would continue to roast if it were not cooled.
This uses just a big downdraft fan to cool down. Right, yeah.
Okay.
If you can,
so this is just agitating it and then there's a fan.
I usually put my hand right here on the side when the side gets cool because you touch the beans and they're going to feel cool, but on the inside they're still going to be warm.
While the coffee cools, Brad can inspect the roast.
And after we dump a roast, we inspect it to make sure that it's fairly uniform. We're also looking for any defects that may have occurred during the roast.
Once they are cooled, the beans are stored in airtight bags that have a one-way valve.
What this will now start doing is what is called degassing. Degassing is 24, 48 hours-ish. The beans will give off CO2. So if we were to take these beans, especially if you were to grind them and put them right into a sealed bag, it'll puff like a balloon. That will allow the CO2 to be able to escape to keep the oxygen from coming in. That's really the big killer with coffee, is oxygen.
Both the type of bean and the type of roast will affect a coffee's flavor. As an example, Brad had me sample a medium and a dark roast of the Sumatra Mendeling bean. Amazingly, they were completely different.
Same coffee. Same coffee, two different roasts, two completely different tastes.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have the words to describe how they're different, but they are definitely totally different in taste. Different taste profiles are developed not only by using different beans or different roasts, but also by creating blends.
The different blends will use the different dark or medium roast, and the amounts that you put in along with the other coffees, you'll get different tastes.
The process of cupping is a way to assess the taste profile of a coffee. Brad set up 3 different coffees in order to teach me the basics of cupping, and I was just a little intimidated at the prospect. Seeing if they smell different. They probably should, and I should probably be better at this.
We'll find out.
I know, right? If there's a quiz later, I'm gonna fail.
What we're looking at here, this is some Ethiopian Sodoma.
Okay.
Guatemalan Wewe Tenengo.
Wewe Tenengo. You
Not
should see how
Huey
it's
Huey.
spelled.
Not
It looks
Huey
like
Huey. Not Huey Huey.
Okay.
Wewe Tenengo. And this is Sumatra Mendeling. Essentially, you have the countries and then the regions that they came from.
Okay.
That's the different names. These are completely different types of coffee, different tastes in coffee.
In other words, they were so different, even my untrained palate should be able to taste it.
So this is a cupping protocol.
Okay.
We're going through, there's a percentage of water to coffee that we'll be using, the ratio. And the first thing is to take a coarse ground coffee, then you go through and then you smell it. So grab one and take a good, and the different senses you're going to be looking at, thinking of how does it smell? Floral, is it kind of maybe a bourbon, or just what are you sensing? What are you smelling when you smell it? So go through and smell all three, and you should be able to smell the differences in them. They aren't going to smell the same.
Okay. Ooh, they really don't smell the same. That one is completely different from that one.
Yep.
I don't have the right words for it. Fortunately, Brad had another handy-dandy cheat sheet that showed different descriptive terms for coffee. Well, fruity isn't the word. It's much more aromatic. That's a dumb word. I know that's not even a description.
A fruity, a citrusy, sometimes maybe almost a grapefruit.
This is more like down here.
Okay, yep.
To me.
Yep.
He's like, no, it's not.
Now try this one.
He's sitting there going, wow, you're really bad at this. It smells like Sumatra to me. Obviously.
And that should be
I was going to
more
say,
down
this is
in...
definitely more vanilla. This was more like syrup. And this one is somewhere up here, but I have no idea how I would describe it.
Perfect.
You did a good job. The next step is to add boiling water to the grounds and let them steep for 4 minutes. While we waited, Brad and I discussed some of the finer points of coffee.
This is considered specialty coffee. This is not something that you're going to try to compare to something that you're primarily going to find sitting on the grocery store shelf. Going back to storing coffee, you want to, if you can, buy your coffee as whole bean. And again, you only want to buy enough to last about 2 weeks. Once coffee is ground, it will start quickly losing its flavor and start going stale. Whole bean is good for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks if well packaged. Ground coffee, 2 days.
So much for buying the jumbo can at the warehouse store. Now, back to cupping.
You take your spoon and quickly, not real slow. You want to stir it up. One, you push down 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then bring your spoon upside down, and you're smelling the whole time. You want to have your nose down in there. This is the one time in life it's okay to be a brown noser. So you want to get your nose right down in there, and if you get it, you may burn it. It's still very hot. But to get your nose right down in there, and you're smelling the whole time as you crack. So I'll go ahead and do this one, then I'll allow you to do, and I'll allow you, then you can do those two.
Okay.
So we'll take the Sumatra here, when we get down in here.
You do make a mess.
Lovely.
I was not confident about this, but I had to try. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I made a mess.
All the way down to the bottom. There you go.
Wow.
All right.
That's amazing. I made a mess.
Here, we'll get some hot water in there so you can
clean the spoon
rinse
off.
off your coffee.
Okay.
There's coffee off your spoon there.
There we go.
All right.
Okay. Wow.
And you should smell some differences between
Absolutely.
the coffees.
I still can't describe them, but they definitely smell very different.
What would you...
This one smells, I don't like to say floral, because when I say floral, that means...
Nope.
To my
floral
brain,
is a
that,
great
in my
word.
brain, that means
Nope, that's
like
fine.
perfume. But it's somewhere between like kind of fragrant, I don't want to say citrus either, but sort of. This one is the Guatemalan compared to the Ethiopian. This one is much more like, this smells to me that's very kind of syrup-y, chocolatey kind of. I would say syrup, because when I smelled it before I thought, oh, it smells like maple syrup. This one when we were just sniffing it.
Yep.
Does that sound about right?
Yep, you're right on. You're right on.
Yay!
So,
Brad skimmed the grounds off the top of our cups, and it was time for the taste testing.
this is the fun part.
Okay.
Now, you have a couple choices. We're going to be slurping, and then you can either swallow it or you can spit it out. What a lot of folks do is spit it out, so we can use these as our spittoons. When you go to a real cupping station, facility, the importer I work with, they have a beautiful cupping room with a big, huge round table. It's like a lazy Susan. It spins, and you sit, and you have this big old brass spittoon you put between your legs, and you're sitting there tasting and cupping and spitting and slipping and spitting.
Nice.
So,
it's probably kind of the alternative, you know, like they do it with when you do, if you're going to do some serious wine tasting. Obviously, you can't keep drinking it all because you would be hammered by the time it was done.
Right.
This, you would be a jittery mess.
The process here is to just put a little bit on your spoon.
Okay.
And what you'll be doing is inhaling. And just purse your lips, and what you're essentially trying to do is aerosolize the coffee into your mouth, covering all the different parts from your tongue to roof, and trying to aerosolize and then tasting the coffee from there. So you just put a little bit on.
Okay. He's really good at this. Okay. Let's see what happens. I don't want to get that much because I didn't do that very well, but that was pretty good. Oh, that tastes really good. Wow, that's really yummy. I've never had coffee like that before. Ever. It's hard to slurp when you've been told your whole life not to do it.
There you go.
Wow.
Rinse your spoon.
Really good.
There you go. Tap on a paper towel if you want to help get the water off.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Ooh, now I get some hot chocolate. Oh, I love some hot chocolate. That's really good.
You said that about all three of them.
I know, but I do. They're all really good.
Now, this, just out of curiosity, with the Ethiopian, did you taste maybe a hint of strawberry at the front end? Try it again.
Yeah, if you're gonna plant that in my head, now I'm gonna
Plant
try
that
it
in your
again.
head and think
Okay.
about it as you slurp that one.
I was more worried about actually slurping correctly when I did this one the first time, so let's try it again. Yes, absolutely. That was the word I couldn't come up with for that, because to me it smelled like maple, like something sugary and kind of sweet, but yes, there's strawberry on it. That's wild. I would not have come up with that word though. You completely planted it in my head, but that's completely true. I would support that analysis. Really? How'd you get strawberry in it?
Ask the Ethiopians.
What Brad and I were doing was a very informal cupping, but it certainly gave me the opportunity to experience the taste differences between coffees.
If this was, again, a true cupping protocol, we'd be looking at one from the flavor to how it tastes, looking at the aroma, looking at the body.
The coffee is ranked on each of these characteristics from 5 to 10 points for a total possible score of 100.
A specialty coffee typically is a score of like 85 and above.
That seemed like a lot to think about in one slurp of coffee. You know, if you were following the protocol, you're probably going to have to try the same coffee more than, you can't get all of that necessarily in one shot. Are you going to try it and then
Sometimes, the professional cuppers, there are people,
really,
that's
really
what they
good
do.
at this.
They can do that. They
That's
just
a
sit
job.
there. That is a job. That is
there
a
you
job.
go. See, they don't tell you this in the career development office in school. You could actually just
Be a professional cupper.
And that means you're a coffee taster. There's an awful lot of knowledge required to roast coffee. From the little tiny bit that you showed us today, there's a ton of knowledge required to do this and do it well.
Correct. Just like whether from winemaking, beer making, there's a lot of science behind it. I've been very thankful being a member of the Specialty Coffee Association of America and a member of the Roasters Guild. subset of the Specialty Coffee Association of America. They have been wonderful. The classes they offer, the certifications they offer, and just networking and working with other roasters and other people throughout the country and visiting and seeing and learning has been invaluable.
With all the different coffees out there, how does Brad decide what to roast?
From the business side, you want to be not necessarily roasting what I like, it's what will people buy.
Flavored coffee is extremely popular. Are there certain beans that you just won't flavor, or do you just always use the same thing? Or?
Correct. Yeah, I would never flavor any of these coffees.
Okay.
These are wonderful, lovely coffees by themselves.
Okay.
Typically when you're flavoring a coffee, it's still specialty coffee, but it's one that's not going to necessarily score as high. It's one that may not have as descriptive of a taste such as these, because people who are buying flavored coffee are buying it because they want to taste the flavoring.
Bason Coffee Roasting has a wide variety of flavored coffees, and they have even created some very unique flavors for their clients, like this one for a restaurant in Lancaster.
They serve bacon dipped in chocolate with maple syrup.
Okay.
So they wanted a chocolate maple bacon coffee.
Is this what it smells like? Oh, that is not right. Oh, wow, it smells, Aston, you have to smell it. It smells like bacon.
Ooh. That is chocolate maple bacon coffee.
I can't even imagine what that tastes like. And I'm sure there, different strokes for different folks. It's okay if that's what they want.
Believe it or not,
chocolate maple bacon.
it's not that bad. Believe, I am not a flavored person at all. But when you brew it up and with the coffee, it really isn't bad.
In addition to flavored coffee, Brad has created his own special blends. Ironman blend is quite popular, as is the Bison blend. But they have a little secret.
And
what's
now
in that?
a secret. Don't tell
anyone.
Don't tell anybody. But over in Lewisburg, we call it Bison blend. It's the same thing.
That is some very smart marketing. The variations here alone are really fun. But
And when you start blending them and adding them, yeah.
Endless possibilities.
Endless.
Have you ever made one that was just really bad? You went, wow, I'm never doing that again.
Absolutely.
Their wholesale business covers a large portion of the state.
Currently, we're servicing on a regular basis from Lancaster to Altoona, up to Tunkhannock, out to Hazleton.
That's
so
great.
we're growing. Our mail order, our online business. We have some customers. I have one down in Alabama that orders regularly. A lady out in San Antonio, Texas that orders regularly. So the business has definitely grown. It's perking along. There's no doubt about that.
You can buy Bason Coffee online at basoncoffeeroasting.com or at several local retailers.
Also locally here in Danville, Biters has our coffee on the shelf, Volker's Beer Distributor has our coffee on the shelf, and so does English Garden.
On Wednesdays, Bason Coffee Roasting is at the Lewisburg Farmers Market, and it is available every day at Country Cupboard. If your group is interested in fundraising, Bason Coffee Roasting is happy to make their coffee available and will even put your organization's own label on the bag. Details are available on their website. That does it for this episode of In Your Neighborhood. A great big thank you to Timber Creek Turnings and Bason Coffee Roasting for sharing their stories with us. Be sure and check out IYN online at ccnnews8.com, on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer Wakeman. Thanks for watching.